Our last speaker for the morning session is Dr. Katherine Johnson, who teaches mining and explosives at Missouri S&T. She's an expert in shock physics. So little wonder her research focuses on the adverse effects of high explosives and blasting agents. She admits she gets to blow up things for a living. But that's pretty serious business and science when it comes to quarries where shock waves create traumatic brain and lung injuries. To help overcome these, she's involved in policy training and protective equipment improvements. But in her spare time, Katherine calms herself by playing roller derby. And when you hear her British accent, you will appreciate even more that her derby name is Cuppa Tea in Tea. All right, welcome, Katherine.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Looking at my watch, I think it's break time, so I'll try not to be too long this morning and look out for the notes. You might be wondering a little bit how a mining engineer and an explosives engineer is speaking at a precision health event, and I'm actually not talking about any of my research at all this morning, and no science, but an interagency research resource that I'm part of to improve the rigor and reproducibility of the research that you are doing, in enabling us to share data and come to a common goal together. So this resource that I'll talk more about is really geared around FAIR principles. So having data that is findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. Many of you are aware of NIH's policy in 2023 to mandate data sharing. And so any NIH-funded research project now needs to have all of the data completely accessible for everybody, which is great if there's actually somewhere that is standard and uniform to share that data in the first place. And that's where this project stemmed from. And so the key components of it and where it started is data sharing plans, timely sharing, and accessible repositories. And so this interagency resource started in 2022, slightly ahead of this NIH policy. And I'm here to sort of share some of that and hopefully help you as you continue to put in your grants and have improved data sharing. This is just a graph showing the kind of data that really is and isn't shown or shared in current publications. These are just some sort of standard data elements, really: sex, species, strain, weight, age, the TBI model or the device. It's pretty standard things that you feel like you would need to know in order to reproduce that information or further the study that you are reading about. But if you just look at the black compared to white, you can start to see that, you know, the device that you use to create the model or the injury is very infrequently actually shared in publications. And so how are we supposed to continue and further that? And so that's kind of what this is about. You know all of the information. We've heard some amazing science this morning, and a lot of things that I didn't, went sort of slightly over my head, but I loved learning about. And we know it so well, but it doesn't really help the bigger picture if we can't share that in a uniform way with the greater community. So one of the things that we're sort of working towards is a paper of the future. We're so used, so I'm struggling right now sticking to 30 references in my journal and limited on words as to how much information you can really actually include in the methodology. And we really want to get our results out there, thinking that that's the advance that we're doing, and that's what we hear about this morning is the results from what we are. But just as important to that is how we got to those results that are often left out of this. And so can we truly validate or reproduce when we're restricted in this way? And so our journal of the future and ways that I'll hopefully show you here in a minute to get there is ways to be able to have a full methods that is shown, availability of all of the raw data so that others can come in and we can start to use AI that we heard about this morning in a better way to have all of that data out there and it be usable in a uniform manner, and hopefully so much more as well. So precise TBI, if you hear that, and a lot of this, it's related around TBI, but a lot of these principles are sort of very common and translate to other health initiatives as well. But Precise TBI itself is the group I'm part of, which is Preclinical Interagency Research Resource for TBI. It's interagency-led, so it's the VA, NIH, and DoD. And VA funded, really with the goal of enhancing the rigor, reproducibility, and transparency and translation in preclinical TBI research. And these 6 areas are the main sort of cores or pillars that we have. And so establishing common data elements for TBI. We've developed the open data commons for traumatic brain injury. And that's where you can share your data. A model catalog so that you can look and find a model that's representative of what you want. An area that you can share and publish your protocol with DOI that you can then cite in your publication, and other people can also cite in that publication. My part in this mainly is the Open Field Blast TBI resource part of it, and then as well educational support and outreach, and part of here and collaboration. So I'll speak a little bit more about all of these. But before I do, this is our Precise team. We range in location from San Diego to Virginia Tech. I'm here, and then Dr. Gu is from Mizzou as well. And then we've also, I forget where everyone else is from, but pretty much all over the country. And these are all, highly high research, TBI research faculty members from across the country that we separate into the CDE core, the models core, BLAST core, outreach, and then we have the informatics core as well that is led by Adam Ferguson, who runs our advisory committee as well. So this is a 5-year project that we're halfway through, about year 3 of at the moment. Common data elements, it seems very common, and maybe you know about this. I'm looking at that. That says this is not slide 124. I just saw that in the corner, and now I'm intrigued. I don't even know. I don't have 124 slides, I promise. I just noticed that, and I've looked at these slides so many times too. I don't know where that came from. But they're really standardized variables that seem like we should all know that and all share that data, but it's so often that we are not. You might have heard of FITBA if you are in the clinical space, which is a common data elements list for clinical outcomes, but there really isn't anything equal to that on the preclinical space. And so that's what we are establishing. And so if you look at our Precise TBI website, you can see all of the common data elements that we're getting together for the model side, and also the behavioral and histological outcomes as well. So if you're sharing the same information as everyone else, you're able to compare a little better between studies. It's not a new concept at all. 1999 was the first use for clinical studies. But there is an incredibly slow transfer for preclinical use. Getting the translation from preclinical findings to clinical practice is still a huge challenge, especially TBI itself and blast-induced traumatic brain injury. We know it's a big problem from recent conflicts. There's been billions probably in research gone into this area, and we are still pretty far from having a outcome for this injury that is so common for our military members. But you're all aware of the differences in preclinical and clinical conditions. But a big part of that, and what NIH is trying to improve, is our lack of reproducibility in the preclinical studies across labs and across projects. So the big picture and how the CDEs help and what is the actual payoff. Hopefully that's clear, but if we know what we need to collect at the data collection stage beforehand, we're actually going to be able to collect the data and the correct data. Going back is so much harder than going forward. I was talking last night with colleagues about how proposals these days seem to be 25% the idea and 75% all the extra paperwork you have to put in to actually tick all the boxes to get that work. And one of them is a data sharing plan, which I'm, fully admit, often leave to the last minute as a small thing, and it's really not. And hopefully Precise TBI and the resources on that website are going to be able to help you and everyone else think ahead and make that part a little easier in your proposals going forward. So collect the right data at the early stage. Data sharing is now mandatory for most of the funding that we want to go towards, so we have to do this. And then sharing it. ODC TBI is the database area, and the ease of upload and download and sharing of that information is a big part of what we're doing, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. I look at a lot of these things. This is a schematic from a paper published just last year, that you look at these and you think, at the proposal stage, we need to list data to be collected and shared. It seems pretty obvious, but so many of us are not doing that and collecting the right data. And so ideas like this is what we're trying to answer within this Precise TBI group. Providing a budget for that and data management and sharing is a big thing. A lot of grants have not really increased in cost or the allowable amount that you can spend for this research, but the cost of doing everything and publishing is increasing so much. So we have to get ahead of that and think and plan as to how we're going to do that. But having standard SOPs to work on this is going to be a good thing. Just really briefly, because I was going to be quick and I'm not at all, but ODC TBI, and there's a sister website as well for spinal cord injury if you work in that. So it's the same platform that you can either be a user and download the public data to use in your own research. You can access portals as a community member internally after a small approval, or you can be a full member and upload and share your own data and publish it with a DOI number for that. So odctbi.org is a great place to be actually uploading and sharing this in a uniform space, and there's resources on there about how to put your data into a spreadsheet, have a data dictionary to explain it so that others can learn and use your information. This is just a quick thing of paper of the future and how this all comes together for Precise TBI, where you have your main manuscript that we're all used to, but with protocols.io, you can also publish your entire protocol. You can publish and share your model specifically, so you know what devices people are using and new people getting in or new faculty. That's the hardest thing these days. How do I start? Start here and look at models that are out there and reproduce those and learn from, you add your research into those areas. There's also research resource identifiers. If you're not using those in your publications, go online and search RRIDs and start using those to be more specific in the biological resources that you're using. And clearly here we can show that once you've published your protocol once, it's there for all of your future publications as well, making life a little easier. I'm going to glide over this one and just show this final one, which is my big part of it, and developed an open field blast core model that's relevant for the veteran and military blast exposure. There's a lot of models out there with different blast tubes, and all of them are ultimately going to be slightly different from this open field environment. Hopefully we get a cool video here of the actual shock passing through. So we have an open field environment where we can use high explosives. It took quite a lot of fun figuring out how to get animals outside and back into the vivarium reasonably. But this has been used widely for the VA and DoD to study a lot of military relevant blast exposures. So if you want to collaborate on that, reach out. It's a good thing. And I'll just leave this up here for a second, which has got a lot of websites to find this information so that you can start sharing and using the resources that are out there. So thank you.
Thank you. Let's take 2 questions if we could. Yes?
Thanks. So is the idea that you publish your main article in a standard journal, and then this will be a curated online resources through the federal government to put this other information?
Yes, so you would still publish as normal, and then you can cite the full protocol with more information than you would really be able to in your main manuscript. And then rather than just clicking the button of, I'll make my data available on reasonable request and hope that they don't ask because it's in a terrible format, the goal is to actually have that available. And the ordering of all of it, the idea is to publish the data set first or in conjunction with, but you can always easily go back now and add them back and forth, and all of these have DOIs that you can
Another
cite.
way to get to this is, not everyone in the room may be aware that Dr. Arnold is now the editor-in-chief of a journal called Missouri Health. We just created it at the University of Missouri. We're just getting ready. We just published our 3rd issue. It's a place for our students, residents, fellows, postdocs to publish, but it could be more than that. And because we publish it, it's open access, free, online, and it's a way to get away from the rules that the big publishing companies put on all of us and the limitations. And it's unlimited length. We can publish anything in there. And so if every university, medical school, academic campus had their own journal, then we could publish this sort of stuff as we choose. And so, but you might talk to Dr. Arnold to think about, is there a way to sort of publish really high caliber stuff like yours in here? The other thing is, I assume you've connected with Dr. Ross Safant, the new executive vice dean. You have?
Yes, I have, yeah.
Okay, good.
Yep, working with him on some proposals.
I was just going to ask if you could comment more on the funding mechanism you use to support this project, and what type of resources are available to build this type of resource for other fields?
Yeah, and so this, the people that were on that slide we're pretty much only financially funded salary-wise for this, so that part of it. And then ODC TBI is VA funded to develop that. And it's actually, rather than the TBI, most of it was developed through the spinal cord side, and we've sort of taken it across, and so I think there's going to be more opportunities that way. The main database is there, and it might end up just going towards Open Data Commons without the additional 3 letters after it, because really the only difference is the data elements that you're going to map to per discipline.
Thank you.
Yeah.